Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradari, Jaya Yashoda Nandana, Jaya Braja Jana Ranjana, Jaya Yashoda Nandana, Jaya Braja Jana Ranjana, Jaya Yamuna Tira, Jaya Vangami, Jaya Yamuna Tira, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you all so much, dear Vaishnavas, sweet Vaishnavas. Domi, do you mind turning up the light just a tiny bit? Not like crazy bright, that we're gonna get blasted, but just a little bit. I feel like I'm still asleep, so I need to wake up. Please bless me that I may speak something useful this morning, and I'll just chant some short opening Mangalatran, very short. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Chalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 10, verse 16 and 17. And this is the pastime of the deliverance of the Yamala Arjuna trees. This is the two sons of Kuvera, and like this whole pastime. But these specific verses are very nice, very interesting. So I'll read the Sanskrit, the translation, and the purport of each one, because each one has a purport. Nityam kshut kshama dehasya Daridrasya na kankshina indriyani anushusyanti himsapi vinivartate. Translation: always hungry, longing for sufficient food, a poverty-stricken man gradually becomes weaker and weaker. Having no extra potency, his senses are automatically pacified. A poverty-stricken man, therefore, is unable to perform harmful, envious activities. In other words, such a man automatically gains the results of the austerities. Okay, I don't know what just happened. And penances adopted voluntarily by saintly persons. The purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. According to the opinion of experienced medical practitioners, diabetes is a result of voracious eating, and tuberculosis is a disease of undereating. We should desire neither to be diabetic nor tubercular. Yavad artha prayojanam. We should eat frugally and keep the body fit for advancing in Krishna consciousness. As recommended elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam 1-10. Kamasya nendriya pritir labho jivata yavata jivasya tattva jignasa narto yas cheha karma bhi. The real business of human life is to keep oneself fit for advancement in spiritual realization. Human life is not meant for making the senses unnecessarily strong so that one suffers from disease and one increases in an envious fighting spirit. In this age of Kali, however, human civilization is so misled that people are unnecessarily increasing in economic development. And as a result, they are opening more and more slaughterhouses, liquor shops, and brothels. Haribol. In this way, the whole civilization is being spoiled. Verse 17. Daridrasyaiva yujyante sadhava samadarshina sadbhikshinotitam darsham tatarad vishudyati. Translation: saintly persons may freely associate with those who are poverty-stricken, but not those who are rich. A poverty-stricken man, by association with saintly persons, very soon becomes uninterested in material desires, and the dirty things within the core of his heart are cleansed away. The purport: it is said, Mahad Vichalanam Nrinam Grihnam Dinachestatam. The only business of a saintly person or sannyasi, a person in the renounced order, is to preach Krishna consciousness. Sadhus, saintly persons, want to preach to both the poor and the rich, but the poor take more advantage of the sadhus' preaching than the rich do. A poor man receives sadhus very quickly, offers them obeisances, and tries to take advantage of their presence, whereas a rich man keeps a big greyhound dog at his door so that no one can enter his house. He posts a sign saying, "Beware of dog," and avoids the association of saintly persons, whereas a poor man keeps his door open for them and thus benefits by their association more than a rich man does. Because Narada Muni in his previous life was the poverty-stricken son of a maidservant, he got the association of saintly persons and later became the exalted Narada Muni. This was his actual experience. Therefore, he is now comparing the position of a poor man with that of a rich man. Satam prasangan mama vidya samvido bhavanti hrit karana rasayana katha. Tad Joshanad Aswapavarga Vartmani Shraddha Ratir Bhaktir Anukramishati. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 3:25-25. If one gets the advantage of association with saintly persons by their instructions, one becomes more and more purified of material desires. Krishna Bahir Mukha Haya Bhoga Vancha Kare Nikatha Stamaya Tare Japatiya Dhare. This is from Prema Vivarta. Material life means that one forgets Krishna, and that one increases in one's desires for sense gratification. But if one receives the advantage of instructions from saintly persons and forgets the importance of material desires, one is automatically purified. Cheto darpana marjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam. Unless the core of a materialistic person's heart is purified, he cannot get rid of the pangs of bhava mahadavagni, the blazing fire of material existence. Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Okay. How's everyone doing this morning? Excited to talk about how we should be poverty-stricken so that our hearts can be more clear of material desires, and we can therefore take to Krishna consciousness better. So please remember the context in which we're talking about this, because I think that something like this can simultaneously get very black and white and simultaneously can get very muddled and vague, because it's very easy to say, yes, I should just be poor and not desire for material things, and therefore I'm the best devotee, I'm better than you. And at the same time, it's very easy to say, no, there's nuance to this, and yukta vairagya, and like, what about all these other people that are doing like this? So it's kind of a touchy topic, actually, because it's easy to be kind of dualistic in the thinking here of we should be like this, and if you're doing that, then that means you're bad. And it's also easy to be kind of vague and just like whatever. And so I won't get too much into the pastime, because these specific verses, they're obviously about the pastime, but you've been hearing these past few days about Nala, Kuvara, and Manigriva, and they were the sons of Kuvera, and they were kind of just like, shameless in their licentiousness and in their materialism, to the point that when they were enjoying, naked like this in the groves, and Narada Muni came by, they just didn't care, right? Like they weren't ashamed at all. They were just like, whatever, this is what I'm doing. And so this mindset is what really, seeing that way of acting, Narada Muni decided then to curse them as such, right? So we have to remember the context in which this is being spoken. They had been extremely intoxicated by the material energy. However, one could argue, actually, it's not even an argument, it's a fact. It's a fact that we are also extremely intoxicated by the material energy. And for those of you on Zoom, I don't know where you are, but here at the Bhakti Center, we are in New York City, as they call it, the heart of Maya. And you can literally walk out on, the Bhakti Center is very much a shelter. And I'm sure everyone who's living in the ashram here feels that, right? It's like, it's this lighthouse of just spiritual values. And then the second, especially like on a Thursday night or Friday night, you step out into the street and it's like, whoa, like what's going on here? This is intense, right? But it's really interesting because Krishna, Krishna's not, I think a lot of the times, people who are, I don't know, maybe coming from another religion and are brought up with this mindset of like a very judging God or a very wrathful God, or like, if you don't do this, then you're going to hell kind of God, right? And Krishna is very clear in Bhagavad Gita about, this verse, Samoham Sarvabhuteshu, right? He's neutral. He's neutral to the living entities, and you're kind of just going about your karma and like this and whatever. The first two lines of this verse from Bhagavad Gita. However, there's second two verses where Krishna is very clear, right? That for those who worship me with devotion, they are in me and I am also in them. And this isn't necessarily a preference. Srila Prabhupada speaks in the purport. He speaks in the purport, yes, Krishna is neutral to everyone, but it's natural that if someone is loving you with devotion, that you'll also love them back, right? And the reason I bring this up is because when you read these kinds of verses about, well, you should, the poverty-stricken are more open to Krishna consciousness, or more open to spiritual values and this and whatever, it begs the question, what should I do, right? What should I do? What is it that I should do? Should I just not care about material life at all? Should I be extremely ambitious and try to like secure my own material happiness over everything? Like, what is it that I should do? And so I wanted to start with this verse from Bhagavad Gita, this theme of like, what is it that Krishna really wants from us? Like, what is it that Krishna really wants from us? And then we can glean from these verses what is really being said here. Srila Prabhupada talks, let me skip because there's so many things. Oh, actually, no skipping. So in this verse, in the purport of this verse, Samoham Sarvabhuteshu, Srila Prabhupada is saying that the Lord's reciprocation, I'll start a little bit earlier. He says, the example is often given that the Lord is like a desire tree, and whatever one wants from that desire tree, the Lord supplies, right? And a lot of times people come towards God in this mood. Please give me, some material well-being. And then maybe there's an afterthought so that I can be, Krishna conscious or whatever. Like, please give me a car so that I could whatever. And the thing is that like, sometimes it is genuine. Sometimes it is like, actually, I do need the car, right? Like, actually, I do need this car to serve the devotees and to get to the temple and to distribute books. We'll get into that later. But anyway, the purport goes on, but here the explanation is more complete. The Lord is here stated to be partial to the devotees. That is the manifestation of the Lord's special mercy to the devotees. The Lord's reciprocation should not be considered to be under the law of karma. It belongs to the transcendental situation in which the Lord and his devotees function. Devotional service to the Lord is not an activity of this material world. It is part of the spiritual world where eternity, bliss, and knowledge predominate. Did everyone get that? It's a really important point. The Lord's reciprocation should not be considered to be under the law of karma. And so when we're talking about being poverty-stricken or being materially well off, as we know, and we'll get into this point later because it's an important point. I'll end with that point. As we know, in a sense, anything can be Krishna-ized or Krishna-fied, right? Like I can use anything in this material world as paraphernalia for Krishna's worship. This is kind of the magic of bhakti, of the science of bhakti. However, we should understand my own qualification to actually enter into that according to my own material hangups. Does everyone get what I'm saying? If Jai Jagannath usually uses this image of the cookie in the cookie jar, right? And that sometimes we've heard Jai Jagannath say this, the cookie in the cookie jar. So if I know that I am extremely attracted to cookies, and I know that it's dangerous for me, and the cookie means anything, right? Whatever my material attraction is, money, cars, whatever, right? Whatever it is, then maybe I'm not going to use that cookie, or maybe I have to be really careful about using that cookie in devotional service. Does that make sense? Like maybe I'm going to like seek for some superior guidance about like, okay, this cookie and I have a weird relationship. So I'm gonna need some guidance on this one, right? I'm not just gonna take it upon myself, like, yeah, I can use anything in Krishna service, including this cookie, which I have some material hangups for. But getting back to the point, the Lord's reciprocation should not be considered under the law of karma. So we should therefore understand that material desires are secondary, and that we need to prioritize the instructions from the sadhus, because they are the ones that are instructing us on our supreme relationship with Krishna, and not necessarily on the laws of karma that are teaching us how to increase our material hankering. And Srila Prabhupada mentions this specifically in the purport of that second verse, right? He brings up this verse from Bhagavatam, Canto 3, 25. And this verse is really interesting. There's a specific line that I really liked in the purport of that. Srila Prabhupada says, one must give up the association of materialistic persons and seek the association of devotees, because without the association of devotees, one cannot understand the activities of the Lord. So very simple point that's being made here. If I take shelter and association of people whose values are materialistic gain, and that is what they see as the summum bonum of life, right? Having a car, having the house, having the, the condo and Flatiron, whatever, Manhattan, right? If that's their goal of life, and I take association from them, I'm actually not going to advance in my Krishna consciousness. And not because, and this is where we need to get off, sometimes we have a moralizing standpoint, not because they're bad people, but simply because they are not going to teach us the science of becoming closer to the Lord. They're not going to teach us how to maneuver ourselves in this world so that we can understand the activities of Krishna, right? Janma karma chamed divyam, right? Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita that those who understand the transcendental activities of my birth and my pastimes, they're the ones who really come close to me. They're the ones who really understand me. So the big point here is about people in association, right? Like, who am I associating with? Who am I taking shelter of? And not necessarily because they're bad people. I think we need to get off of this moralizing standpoint, because, you know, as devotees, we do this thing, the karmis, right? I don't go over there with those karmis. And so Krishna's saying, you know, in this purport to Samoham Sarva Bhuteshu, I can't remember word for word, but Srila Prabhupada is saying that Krishna loves all of his children like a father loves all of his children. And so he's neutral. He loves all of his children. But let's be real. I don't know about all of you, but at least with my parents, like, we know who the favorite is. Like, we know who the favorite is of my mom, and we know who the favorite is of my dad, and why. I was just talking to my mother yesterday. Why? Because I have a deeper relationship with my mom, right? So because I have a deeper relationship with her, then I'm the favorite, right? Of my mom, not my dad. Like this. And so Krishna is saying, Srila Prabhupada is saying the same in the purport. It's only natural that if we give our loving devotion to Krishna, that there'll be a little bit of, you know, reciprocation back, right? Hare Krishna, Arjuna. So, oh my God, it's 7:39 and there's so many points to make. Okie dokie. So let's keep on going. So, association, we understood this point. There's this very nice proverb that I was trying to find who it's allocated to, and apparently they don't know. Apparently, some say it was Shakespeare, some say it was Miguel Cervantes who wrote Don Quixote. But tell me what company you keep, and I will tell you who you are. It's very simple, right? And I remember, just one more point on this. I remember someone made this point to me a while ago. About giving your association versus taking someone else's association, right? And so sometimes we think that I can be in situations where there's cookies everywhere, but I am not understanding my own situated place. I'm not understanding that I am a neophyte. And basically I'm like, no, I can handle it. I can handle the bar. You know, I'm going to talk to my friends about Krishna, so it's fine that I'm at the bar, you know. And that might be true. The intention might be true, but all around you, there's so many varieties of cookies, right? And so it's not a winning combination. Okay, final point there. Next point that I'll make is, so the question then becomes, how do we, if Krishna is partial to his devotees and we're in him and he's in us, and really the message here is that we should just have a loving relationship with Krishna, right? We should be developing our relationship with Krishna. Srila Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport that we should take the association of the saintly persons, the sadhus, because they are actually teaching us the science of how to advance in that relationship. So then it begets the question, well, what's all this, you know, poverty-stricken, rich stuff going on? So in Queen Kunti's prayers, Krishna is spoken as akinchana gocharam. He is easily approached by those that are materially exhausted. It is said that Srila Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport that materially puffed up persons are incapable of chanting the holy names with quality. So they can still chant, but they can't chant with quality because they're materially puffed up. Therefore, the Cheto is not Darpana Marjana. Yes, this is Shikshastakam that Srila Prabhupada is saying in the purport. Cheto Darpana Marjana means that the chanting of the holy names is wiping the mirror of the heart or the consciousness clear of the anarthas, right? Of all the unwanted desires. Bhava Maha Divagni Nirvapanam. Bhava Maha Davagni Nirvapanam, right? It is extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. And so if I am materially puffed up, if my attention is elsewhere, if I am taking shelter and association from those that are they're not necessarily bad people, but they're just not instructing us on our relationship with Krishna. And if I'm not at the level where I can separate that, giving association versus taking association, and I'm actually being affected by their values, then my Cheto will not be Darpana Marjanam. Yes? So therefore, Queen Kunti is saying that Krishna is a Kinchana Gocharam. He is easily approached by those that are materially exhausted. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, sometimes it is seen that spiritually advanced persons become materially impoverished. This is no discouragement. On the other hand, such impoverishment is a good sign, as much as the falling of temperature is a good sign. The principle of life should be to decrease the degree of material intoxication, which leads one to be more and more illusioned about the aim of life. Grossly illusioned persons are quite unfit for the entrance into the kingdom of God. So again, this is not saying, and I know I was supposed to end at 7:45, but I need 6 more minutes. We'll end at 7:50. This is not saying, I'll make sure to make this point, even if it's 1 minute. This is not saying that you can't have a materially well-off life. The point is, what is your intention and how am I being instructed? If I am living a materially well-off life and the values of perhaps that sangha that I'm taking around me, that perhaps might be asat sangha, right? Perhaps it might be like the values are, I got to make as much money as possible so that I could have a nice apartment in a high-rise in Manhattan, right? Then we will become grossly illusioned. But this is really interesting here because Queen Kunti also calls Krishna a Kinchana Vittaya, the property of the materially impoverished. And there's a really beautiful story by Sanatana Goswami in the purport that I would like to read because I feel like it really drives the point home of this verse. This is Bhagavatam, Canto 1, 827. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, here it is. So there's a nice story about Srila Sanatana Goswami. He had a touchstone, right? Touchstone is like you touch it to anything and it turns things to gold. He had a touchstone and the stone was left in a pile of refuse. A needy man took it, but later on wondered why the valuable stone was kept in such a neglected place. He therefore asked Sanatan for the most valuable thing, and then he was given the holy name of the Lord. A kinchana means one who has nothing to give materially. A factual devotee or mahatma does not give anything materially to anyone because he has already left all material assets. He can, however, deliver the supreme asset, namely the personality of Godhead, because he is the only property of a factual devotee. The touchstone of Sanatana Goswami, which was thrown in the rubbish, was not the property of the Goswami. Otherwise, it would not have been kept in such a place. And this is the really important point here. This specific example is given for the neophyte devotees just to convince them that material hankerings and spiritual advancement go ill together. Unless one is able to see everything as spiritual in relation with the Supreme Lord, one must always distinguish between spirit and matter. A spiritual master like Srila Sanatana Goswami, although personally able to see everything as spiritual, set this example for us only because we have no such spiritual vision. So again, unless one is able to see everything as spiritual in relation with the Supreme Lord, one must always distinguish between spirit and matter. Yes? So now we are getting to my final point of Yukta Vairagya. We love this point, right? Yukta Vairagya. I can have a Mercedes-Benz. It's in Krishna service. Yukta Vairagya. I can aspire to be a multimillionaire because it's in Christian service, yukta vairagya, right? But it's very clear here that for the devotees that are on the neophyte level, me, we don't have this sama darshana, right? We're not seeing everything as equal. This is given in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verses 7, 8, 9, right? So we have to remember that we are not able to, I can speak for myself, I am not able to see happiness and distress as the same. I am not able to see cold and hot as the same. When we're in the cold, we're longing for the heat. When we're in the summer, we're longing for the cold. And then it goes on, right? I am not able to see stone, pebbles, and gold as the same. If we see stone, whatever. If we see gold, gimme, right? And the highest level, this is Krishna speaking, we are not able to see well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral, mediators, the envious, friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind, right? This is not, Krishna is speaking about the transcendentalist here, right? Krishna is speaking about the highest, one of the highest levels here. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport is really clear. It's like, we're not at that level. And Sanatana Goswami is setting this example for us that if we're not at that level, then we should be very clear to differentiate things. And therefore, I'll end here. Therefore, in Gita 9:29, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada speaks about yukta vairagya, and he defines a yukta. He defines a yukta as someone who is able to take superior direction. Someone who is able to take superior direction. So this idea of linking everything in Krishna's service should not be done whimsically. And so therefore this speak about poverty is true, because I mean, I don't know about all of you, but I aspire to like go to Vrindavan when I'm like 60 years old and have like a very simple life. Like that's my aspiration. So it is true. There is an element of like austerity, you know, and we see it in Adipurusha's example and Arjuna Prabhu's example, right? That like as we're letting go of things, and this is the proper consciousness, right? However, that being said, it should be done with realization, and that realization needs to come from somewhere. It needs to come from the sadhus. It needs to come from the Bhagavatam. It needs to come from hearing. It cannot be done on our own whimsical desires, because if we are left to our own whimsical desires, then we're not going to make advancement in Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada says very clearly, you can chant Krishna's name, but there won't be quality to it. So if the heart is not cleansed of the anarthas, I can chant Krishna's names, but I'll just be doing the right, like this. And I'm not going to actually get anywhere. And the whole point of Krishna consciousness is that I'm trying to get somewhere. And that somewhere is Krishna, right? Back to Godhead. And so I think that sometimes, and I know I said I'll end here, but I'll really end here. I think that sometimes, 55 is fine. I think that sometimes we get a little complacent in our Krishna consciousness, right? Like myself, I definitely get complacent in my Krishna consciousness of like, yeah, I'm just chanting my rounds and doing my service, and that's it, right? Like whatever. And we forget that there's actually a goal, right? The sadhya, the goal, right? And there's a process of bhakti yoga, and there's a science that's laid out. And so we mustn't forget that process, because if we forget it, then we'll get stuck in the constant duality of this material world of just hankering and hankering and hankering after things that bring us happiness sometimes, and then bring us distress, and then brings happiness and distress. And the more we become intoxicated with this, the more that we will actually seek shelter of those that are also intoxicated with this, right? Because it's like a, yeah, thank you. It's like, it becomes reinforced by that. It's creating some scars in the mind. And so you have to create some scars in the mind. We have to remind ourselves of our eternal spiritual position and constitution. And so I'll just do a quick summary of the points that I made, and then I'll end. So quick summary. Krishna is saying here in the verses that the poverty-stricken man becomes quickly uninterested by material desires, and the dirty things in the core of his heart are cleansed away, right? Because they are taking to the association of sadhus more quickly, unlike people who are materially well off, like Srila Prabhupada is saying in the purport, and are having the dog at their house and the sign that says beware of dog. And so I opened it up by speaking about Krishna's neutrality, because this kind of question where it's this kind of point where it's comparing the poverty-stricken versus the non-poverty-stricken, those that are perhaps seeking out material well-being, begs the question of like, well, what does Krishna really want, right? Like, what is it that he wants from me? Because in Bhagavad Gita, he's saying samoham sarva bhuteshu, that I'm neutral to everyone. And so then I made this point that actually what Krishna wants is a reciprocal relationship of love. And that reciprocation, Srila Prabhupada makes the point, should not be considered to be under the law of karma. And therefore, we must be, I made this point that we must be instructed in the science of that reciprocal relationship, because we're not just gonna, right? Bhakti yoga is a process, it's a science, and therefore we have to be instructed on how do I do this reciprocal relationship that's not under the laws of karma? And how do I create those positive samskaras so that I'm not seeking shelter in material intoxication and others that are there? And so I made the point about people and association and being careful about the company that you keep. We went on to Queen Kunti's prayers that Krishna is akinchana gocharam, easily approached by the materially exhausted, and more specifically, akinchana vidya, the property of the materially impoverished. And we said the story that Srila Sanatana Goswami gives, that's very important, that material hankerings and spiritual life go ill together, especially for neophyte devotees who can't make the distinction of, like I said, giving one's association or being affected by someone else's association, right? So the example of going into the bar and preaching Krishna consciousness at a neophyte level is not probably a good idea. And final point I made is that we are not sama darshina. We are not on the level of seeing pebbles and stone and gold and our well-wishers and the envious and the sinners and our enemies and our friends on the same level. That's not where we're at. And therefore, our yukta vairagya of using things in Krishna consciousness should be done under, as Srila Prabhupada defines in Bhagavad Gita 9:29, under superior direction. Jai. Okay. We will have 6 minutes of questions. Thank you so much. I'm not looking at the chat. Don't preach Krishna consciousness in the bar. Yes, that's fine. So if anyone has any questions, we can open it up.
Thank you, Kishor Chandra Prabhu. Does anybody in the temple room have a question?
Yes, Champakalata.
Hey, Kishor Chandra, before we give her the floor, please don't go to Vrindavan just yet. Okay, we need you here in New York to inspire us in Krishna consciousness.
What, Prabhu? I don't know.
Okay. I just want to, I was really thinking, try to come up with a question, but I don't have a question, but I just really wanted to appreciate, because this was like an extremely comprehensive class that was just so like point by point, just answered everything. Because yes, sometimes we can read these verses in Bhagavatam and be like, oh, like, does that mean then that poor people are Krishna conscious and rich people aren't Krishna conscious? And then sometimes we read other verses that talk about if someone is really advanced, Krishna will give them all material opulence because they can use it in Krishna's service without being contaminated. And then we can think, oh, someone who's wealthy is really advanced, but someone who's poor is not really advanced, and it can get confusing. And you just clarified in this class, like, Krishna consciousness is so individual and personalized according to where we're at. It's not a cookie cutter fits all. Depending upon our cookies, Krishna will give us a different cookie cutter.
Ooh, I like that. Depending on our cookies, Krishna will give us a different cookie cutter. That's the big takeaway of the class, everyone. Jai, any other questions here? If not, we will open it up to online Zoom room.
Okay, okay, audience, come on now, this is your chance. Okay, Isabel, Spirit Soul.
Minutes.
Okay, Spirit Soul,
Isabel
go
has a
ahead.
question.
Good morning, Hare Krishna. Thank you for class. Wonderful class. my question is simple, and maybe it's not a question, but more of a realization. So you let me know if you want to explore a little bit more. But when I found Krishna consciousness, when it came into my life, I was associated with a lot of people that kind of like dragging me maybe into this modern world of let's go out drinking, let's end of the week, like, oh my God, it's such a hard week, let's have that glass of wine or whatever, only to pull me away from my yoga path. I was a yoga teacher, and sometimes really hard to wake up on Saturday morning and teach. But when I found Krishna conscious, I did kind of like say, okay, to a lot of people, right? Especially those interested in the Mercedes Benz and the BMWs and the $900 million houses, whatever. But at the same time, I felt like the more I kind of stopped the association with a lot of people, I felt like I was doing a disservice as I grew in Krishna consciousness, because some of these people were my good friends, and I didn't divorce them completely, but I kept them at arm's distance a little too far. Now they're back in my life, and I'm not preaching Krishna conscious per se, but I'm living Krishna consciousness, and they're feeling it, and they're actually little by little making these changes in their lives. And I think about that all the time. Like, I get more people coming back into my life. Maybe this is the age to do that, but sometimes I say, should I push them away or keep them up, at a distance, or should I allow them in at a safe level so that in a way I could share what I'm learning and what I'm experiencing at my level of understanding it. Of course, I'm no expert. I'm neophyte. I'm so like, early on, I believe in the path, but how do you discern like between letting somebody in your life and knowing that they're gonna benefit from what you're experiencing and keeping them at that arm distance?
It's a very nice question, and we also only have 1 minute before the curtains open. But I will just say that His Holiness Radhanath Swami often talks about the GPS and needing to recalibrate the GPS at times when you've noticed that you've gone astray. And so that is the answer that I will give. That one, according to your Sangha, your devotional Sangha, your Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu, you will see if you're on the right path. And then if you stray away, you'll need to recalibrate the GPS. The curtains are going to open. We got to go. Hare Krishna. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you, Isabel, Spirit Soul. Very intelligent question. We hope the answer was satisfying. Okay. I guess, we were cut out. No darshan. But tomorrow is another day. That's the beauty of Krishna consciousness, that it's every day. So thank you so much for participating, for listening. Andrea, good seeing you. Thank you for smiling.
If
Say
you
hi
want,
to
I
Paul.
can give you darshan of our baby Damodara.
Yes, please. We'll take it. Okay, dear devotees, please turn your cameras on so that baby Damodar can see you. Oh, Hare Krishna. Jai. Jai.
Haribo.
He looks so happy.
He's very happy. He's a sweet boy.
Nice. Good seeing Bhima Prabhu, Hemangi, Rameshwar Naik, Isabel Spirit Soul, Akiko Chan, Servin. Yeah, Kishor Chandra, one thing I wanted to say about him, he was so eager to share Krishna consciousness. He came prepared. He looked clean, happy. It's just amazing that someone of Kishor Chandra's caliber came into our life this morning to share Krishna consciousness with us. Just wanted to say that. Yeah. Bhima Prabhu, would you like to say something in glorification of Krishna?
I'll glorify the speaker, Krishna. What the name? What's his name again?
Kishor Chandra.
Kishor Chandra. Well done. I mean, he's not here to hear this, but well done. Very well put. I think the only thing that I take away from this, not the only thing, but one of the things I'd like to add to it is that despite the fact that, and I find it often being around for 40 some odd years and seeing devotees struggle economically or become successes economically, and including myself, both sides of that, is that we always have to understand something very simple, and that it is easier, it is as hard for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven as it is for a camel to get through the eye of the needle. And the eye of the needle is actually a gate, which is only as wide as a camel, which keeps in Israel, which would keep the entrant through the gate from bringing any baggage in. So the camel actually has to get down on its knees and has to be stripped of all its baggage before it can enter through the gate, so that they can check the bags and make sure there's no weapons or, etc. So this is like us, despite whether we yukta Viagra ourselves into wealth or let go into poverty and simpleness, simple living, high thinking, we're going to have to give it all up, and we have to prepare for that. So that is the true Cheto Darpana Marjanam, the cleaning away of our attachments. So that was a wonderful class, and thank you very much for inviting him to speak. Invite him again and again. Hare Krishna.
Oh, thank you, Bhima Prabhu. Very beautiful elaboration on the camel scripture saying. I just wanted to read something from Prabhupada, something very, very relevant. It's Srimad Bhagavatam 7:15-21 purport. For spiritual advancement, one should be materially satisfied. For if one is not materially satisfied, his greed for material development will result in the frustration of his spiritual advancement. There are two things that nullify all good qualities. One is poverty. Daridra dosa guna rasi nasi. If one is poverty-stricken, all his good qualities become null and void. Similarly, if one becomes too greedy, his good qualifications are lost. Therefore, the adjustment is that one should not be poverty-stricken, but one must try to be fully satisfied with the bare necessities of life and not be greedy. For a devotee to be satisfied with the bare necessities is therefore the best advice for spiritual advancement. So I found that very relevant.
Look for the bare necessities, mother's nature's recipes. Forget about your troubles and your strife. Yeah, man.
We'll end with that.
From Jungle Book. Has anybody seen that movie, Jungle Book, from Disney?
Yes.
Yes. Look
We
for the
need your
bare.
singing more. We need your singing more, Bhima. That was wonderful. Sing again.
Watch the cartoon. It's totally Krishna conscious. Watch a Jungle Book by Disney. It's one of those movies you can watch and not feel bad about with your kids, because it's all about Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Bhima Prabhu. This is Bhima Prabhu's secret of advancement. That's what he does. So if you want to become like Bhima Prabhu, you know what to do. Okay. Hare Krishna, everybody. Have a wonderful Monday and see you tomorrow.